I'm Dana Denha, and you're watching FYI. In a year when social gatherings are put on hold, let's step back in time and enjoy all the preciousness the daddy daughter dance had to offer in 2020, right before the pandemic hit.
The relationship between fathers and daughters took center stage at a yearly county celebration.
We're doing our annual Daddy Daughter Dance event. We do this every year around Valentine's Day.
This daddy daughter date night creates a tight knit bond and memories that'll last a lifetime.
We have a photo booth, we have some arts and crafts going on, we have face painting and refreshments. Year after year, it's just great to see the daughters come with their dads every year. They build relationships and memories here that last forever. We see a lot of the same people year after year, and it's just fun to see them come back every year, and they're always so excited.
The city has a quick and easy service available to report problems that may arise throughout Ann Arbor, like potholes, streetlight repair, and trash pickup issues. Learn more about A2 Fix It in this month's City Roundup in 60.
Hello, my name is Robert Keller with the City of Ann Arbor, here to tell you a quick and easy way to report problems to the city that you need to get fixed. Problems like potholes, streetlight outages, or snow or ice on sidewalks or streets. It's called A2 Fix It. A2 Fix It is a tool you can access online. Just simply go to a2gov.org/A2Fixit or download the app for your smartphone. Now keep in mind, A2 Fix It isn't for everything. A2 Fix It isn't for emergencies, crime issues, or flooding or water problems. But for practically everything else, A2 Fix It is your best and easy way to let us know you need something fixed.
With the majority of us spending a lot of our time on our own property, we can aim some of our attention to help eradicate an invasive plant species that will potentially harm our health, ecosystem, and economy. Joining me is Shika Singh, coordinator and biologist with Jackson Lenawee Washtenaw Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area, or JLW SISMA. I know that's quite a mouthful, but that's the area that we're sort of talking about right now. And what we're really going to be talking to today about is the mile-a-minute weed that was discovered outside of that area, but we're a little concerned that it's going to enter into our area, correct?
Right. So, the species was accidentally found, I would say. We had someone that worked at the Albion College White House Nature Center, and that's in Calhoun County. So that's like right at the border of Calhoun County and Jackson County. And so they had found mile a minute weed there. So I believe it's like the first time it's been found in Michigan. And it's a vine. So it was found and confirmed at the end of last year. So that's how new it is. And the state of Michigan had a big, press release, and we had our own press release go out. And one of the things that we are concerned about is this plant species spilling over to our jurisdiction. And, a lot of invasive species, they move in a variety of ways. They are, you know, moved via animals like deer, birds who eat the seeds, especially if it's a plant species. And when they go to the bathroom, like sometimes that seed is actually viable. It won't be destroyed by the acid in the stomach and whatnot. So it can actually, like, they can eat it in one spot, go somewhere else, and excrete it, and then that seed is viable. And so another way, invasive species in general are, spread around is, like our activities. We may have seeds and burrs stuck to our clothing. And if we go from one area and then we recreate to another area, if we don't clean our shoes off in between, we risk transferring them to another area. And before I get too far into it, I just want to remind your viewers of what an invasive species is. An invasive species is a species that's not from around here. And not only is it not from around here, but it has to cause some type of harm. And that harm can be harm to the environment, it can cause economic harm, or it can cause harm to human health. So, for example, environmental harm, it can take over an area, suppress native species. economic, perhaps it causes a lot of damage, infrastructure damage. It causes, maintenance fees and, for example, zebra mussels, that people are familiar with those. And there are some species that actually harm people. The giant hogweed, if you touch it, some of the material, like sap, can get on your skin, and a variety of plants can actually, react with the sun and cause blisters and burns.
Wow,
Even
that's
zebra
that's pretty
mussel.
intense because I think a lot of times when you think about invasive species, like when I was reading your press release about it, you mentioned about human health. And like I think a lot
Yes,
of times you don't really think of the human health aspect of an
right.
invasive plant species. I mean, I guess you could also add in like you don't know how it would affect your allergies in a way too, because you
Yep.
don't know. I mean, like I've personally been dealing with a lot of allergy issues this past year. So, I mean, you have no idea how certain invasives would affect that aspect of your health as well.
Yeah. This guy behind me, the red swamp crayfish, it's an invasive species and it's a tasty problem, but again, it can cause erosion, damage the soil, the riverbanks. And, it has pinchers too, but it can also bring in diseases. But even, human health, if you like go to a beach and you have all these zebra mussel shells, I mean, if you cut your feet on them, that's harm to human health as well. So, yeah, invasive species are a problem, and sometimes they only cause like economic harm. They don't all have to be,
Some of them are
environmental.
worse than others, right? They're not all
Yeah,
created equal.
correct, correct.
So why don't
And
we talk
so yeah.
specifically about how this mile a minute weed, do we know how it got transferred? Because it was something that wasn't originally in the United States, right? And then it came over a long time ago, but we hadn't
Correct,
seen it in Michigan.
correct. It's originally from Asia, places like China, is some place. And I don't know how it got here. We're scrambling to kind of figure out, how and where. We may never know. So a couple of things that we had talked about, wildlife. Wildlife could have brought it in. It could have also been somebody who had, gone hiking in one area and then came home and then didn't brush their equipment or clean their equipment and then went hiking. It was in a nature area, so nature areas, have a lot of hikers, a lot of families. And if it was seed based, seeds, if they get on your clothes, they'll last for a while. And so, if it's something that's, been on your shoes for a year, but you haven't used those, shoes in a while, you could have just brought it in that way. So we don't know, but it could have been, via wildlife or our activities.
So it's discovered over in Albion College by Dr. White. And did we see it sort of affecting the plants that it was connected to at the time, or we just know based on its past what its abilities are?
Well, just based on, I mean, it has been found elsewhere in the United States. So we do have a lot of knowledge and experience in other areas of the country. And, you know, I'm not exactly sure. I didn't see the infestation actually in the nature center, but I did see a infestation outside of it, and it was just everywhere. And one of the problems is that it can smother, a lot of, native plant species. You can kind of see that this, vine has like completely covered a lot of these trees and shrubs, and it's, on top of the trees, it's on the bottom. So it not only does it, add weight to whatever tree that it has grown on, but it can also suppress, native plants on the ground because these guys tend to have their leaves, spring, they germinate early in spring. And if they have that, that early advantage, they have that first access to the sun, and then they grow, they germinate, the leaves come out, and then unfortunately, if there's like a native species that takes a little bit longer to germinate, they're out of luck, right? Because by the time the leaves have come in and it's suppressed and they don't have access to that sunlight. So it can also prevent native species from growing, and species that are already there, it can add extra weight and prevent, sunlight from reaching those leaves and eventually killing already established trees. So The unique thing about this vine is it has recurved barbs. And these barbs are on the stems and the underside of the leaves. And it actually allows it to kind of like propel itself and to, allow it to grow over plants easily. So it kind of grips and it can kind of move itself forward. So recurved barbs.
So is it hard to remove then? Because it's sort of like it's almost like it sounds like it's becoming part of the plant in a way.
Yeah, that's why we're doing shows like this, because we want people to get at it early. So if it's a small infestation, it's a little bit easier to get a handle on, because they do have like shallow roots, so you can pull them up, pretty quickly, and you can remove them. But when it gets a little bit bigger, then it requires a lot more, maintenance, herbicides, and a bigger process. And then by then you probably have a lot of, plants, and you may not have killed every single one of the plants or the vines in that area. So when you have a small infestation, it's really easy to kind of remove it. And, you can pull it, you can mow it, you can till it. And so there's a couple different things you can do.
So when we're talking about this weed, how many seeds are we talking about? You keep mentioning these seeds, but I think seeds are obviously the most important thing that we're talking about, right?
Right. And so that's what makes this really difficult to eradicate once an infestation is in place. Each vine can produce up to 3,500 seeds in a year. And so you can imagine, if you have several vines or several, patches of this invasive species, if you miss a small section, there's so many other seeds that are, being spread or blown by the wind or the rain, that, a small infestation can become really problematic really quickly.
Tell us what we're looking for. You kind of mentioned some attributes and we saw some pictures, but it still can be hard for, the layman's to
Mhm.
identify an invasive species.
Yeah. So one of the most distinguishing features is that it has like almost like a triangular leaf. It's light green, almost an equilateral triangle shaped leaf, light green, and it's alternating. So it's, one here, one here. It's not together. It's like kind of alternating. And the stems are light green. And it has the recurved barbs on it, so you can look for those, and they kind of hurt. So you need to wear gloves to kind of yank them out. And it starts to germinate, I would say, like early spring. So, in March, like late March, early April, they'll start coming out. And, the leaves are, like I said, equilateral, like a triangle shaped.
And
And the
it's good to be talking
flowers,
about it now because we're getting to that point. We're
yeah.
close to early spring now, because I
Mhm.
was actually sort of wondering, you guys found this in December.
Yeah.
What is it easier to find invasive species like when everything's sort of dying? I thought it was a weird time of year to find something like that.
Yeah, and I actually have a couple of pictures that I'm going to share with you. How, it is kind of easy to find in the winter, because, it does look like tinsel. And, by the time, winter rolls around, a lot of the leaves have already died off. They fall into the ground. And these guys, like they'll probably start dying, around the first frost. So they do hang out a little bit longer, but the telltale vines are there, and you'll still see some dried, dead leaves, and it really sits like tinsel. So if you look at this one picture that I have, it looks just like a picture of brown vegetation. But if you look really carefully, I have some red arrows that are pointing to like some light, tinsel like material. You can kind of tell that it's there. And it's one of those, once you see it, you're not going to forget it. And there's not a lot of species that kind of look like it at this time of the year. And I have another picture. I have my hand next to the vine, and you can kind of see that's like several, strands of the vine and the leaves combined. So it can get quite thick, and it kind of winds its way around the tree trunk. But that's in the winter. So it is kind of easy to spot in the winter.
Should
But
we be removing, like in the winter, can we remove it and get rid of it when it's sort of in that phase of its life, or do we have to wait for the spring to really eradicate it?
I mean, whatever you can do, it all points to the,
It's all
your
good. Just try to get rid
it's
of it.
all good. However, having said that, there are certain key times you might want to focus it because, at the end, you don't want to wait until all those seeds have dropped to the ground and they're in the soil because those seeds can actually like last for a few years in the soil. Like they're viable for several years. And, you know, in the beginning of the spring and summer when you start seeing it, it'd be good to start hand pulling it, mowing it. And the idea is to prevent it from flowering and preventing like the fruits from forming. And the fruits are actually very unique. They're almost like a blue color, a dark blue color,
Mm-hmm.
and they're kind of pretty. Most invasive species, they do look pretty. And one of the things that we might risk is people might think it looks attractive and they'll want to plant it in their garden or on the side of their house. So um yeah, it has like those bright like dark blue berries, a little bit of purple, depending on how big and what stage of maturation they are. And so you want to mow, hand pull continuously. If you do see like the fruits on the vine, be very careful. Make sure that all of that is removed and put into a bag. You want to double bag any kind of clearing that you've done. Let it sit in the sun in that sealed double garbage bag, and let it bake for a few days. Really trying to like kill it.
That's what I was
And
sort of
then
wondering, because I think a lot of us might potentially remove invasives from our house and just throw it into our compost cart, which is not a good thing, I would
right.
assume.
No, because these are not just typical weeds. And I mean, if they're in a compost, I mean, like I said, they are viable for a few years. And if you just, take that compost and spread it back, you're really not getting rid of the problems.
Yeah. So we
So
need to, so you're saying like put it in a garbage bag, let it sit out in the sun for like 2-3 days to really sort of kill it before you get rid of it.
yeah, I would even say a little bit longer, really bake that, the vegetation in that bag and make sure that you seal it and that, wildlife can't get in it. And so after it's, pretty much broken down and rotten in the bag, you can actually like put it in your landfill.
So throw
So
it in the
that's
garbage.
yeah,
Throw it in
yeah,
the
you can do
garbage
that.
can. Yeah.
Or you can incinerate it if you have that facility. But definitely like kill it, make sure it's dead first, and then you can do what you need to do there.
So in the press release, it mentions like specific sort of areas. You talk about like Christmas tree lots and vineyards. So those are like really hot spots for this mile a minute weed. Should we also be worried about like plants at our house? Like are those things
Yeah.
that, I mean, it could potentially be anywhere.
Yeah, it does like disturbed areas. And the reason why we, made a call out to Christmas trees and orchards is because it does suppress, other vegetation. So if you have it in there, then you're trying to grow something to, that you need to sell like, later on. It can cause you a lot of financial difficulty because your crop's not growing. It's been suppressed by this invasive species. So that's one thing. Another place that I think we called out was places that were doing restoration. All that hard work and effort and time that you've put into making sure this ecosystem is better than it was before. It was healthy. You don't want a new invasive species coming in and then you're back to square one. So that's kind of why we called out orchards, farmers, like the Christmas tree industry, because they really do depend on their crops emerging in a timely manner. And especially in Christmas trees, if you have one year that their crop is suppressed, they're gonna feel it in a few years, right, when they're actually supposed to harvest that year's crop and
Sure.
it's not
Yeah.
there.
Do you have any tips for us? Like, let's say, I'm in my garden and I don't know what something is. I've been working in my garden for years. I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
Should I just get rid of it? Like, I mean, what, because this happens to me. Sometimes I'll see like a weed or something. I'm like, what is this thing? I've never seen anything like this before.
Yes. I'm really glad that you asked me this question. I'm really glad you asked me this question because quite often people find this new weed or this plant, and their first instinct is just to mow it over or get rid of it.
Yeah.
But many invasive species, they have rhizomes. This one does not. This one has shallow roots. But some of them, if you pull it and you mow it, it actually makes the problem worse. So step one, take a bunch of pictures, and we have a lot of tools at our disposal. Identify it, figure out what it is, how it grows. Does it have rhizomes? Is it shallow roots and whatnot? And if you can't identify it, you can contact someone like me. There is someone like me that covers every county in Michigan. And so contact us. We are more than happy to, help you ID those pictures. You can also email us pictures and then figure out how to manage and control it. Whether it's something you can, hand pull, that's great. Some of these you might actually have to use herbicide. Sometimes you might have to use a mix. So identify first and then react later.
Great. That's a great tip. Really, it is, because I probably should have contacted you in the past, because I don't have a keen eye for these things, and I honestly don't even know like I can't identify a lot of the plants in my garden because it was a garden
Yeah.
that was gifted to me when I bought the house.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
maintain it, so like I know I can identify the plants that I know in it, like that
Yeah.
I see on a regular. But then yes, there's always
Yeah.
going to be something that pops up. You're always maintaining it, so
Yes.
it's
The
good to
other
know
thing,
where to go.
yeah, the other thing I would also urge people is don't buy plants that you don't know what they are, and be careful when you're doing plant swaps, seed swaps, because many people will sell seeds and plants of things that they don't know. So it's not regulated oftentimes. So make sure that you're buying from a reputable dealer, and even some of those small nurseries and farms. Make sure that the labels are right, that it's listed as the right species, because sometimes like our nurseries, like they get a shipment and it's not their fault, but it's been mislabeled or something from somewhere else. So it's always good to make sure that you are labeling everything and you know what you're buying and the source. And just because something is pretty, it doesn't mean that it belongs in your garden. So, just be careful.
All right, before we go, was there anything else that you gave us some great tips? You told us what we're looking for. Is there anything else you want us to know before we go?
Yeah, just be really vigilant. Prevention is the best, management tool that we have. And like I said, when summer approaches, people are hiking, people are going from one, park or preserve to another. And this is not only a local thing. This is also when you go to a national park in another state. If you're wearing the same gear, the same shoes, in both places, you do run the risk of transferring things. Make sure that you're not picking, seeds and plants of things that you like in another state to put in your garden. And these are very simple things, but quite often, people, we just we appreciate certain things and we want it in our garden, and we don't really know much about it. We don't think before we move it. And I think
Yeah,
there's like that quote from Jurassic Park, just because we can, it doesn't mean that we should. And so just because you want it doesn't mean that you should have it in your garden. So be careful, keep an eye out for this. We really rely on your viewers to go out and look for these things and send us pictures. I'd rather get 10 wrong pictures than a missed actual
sure. Yeah.
item of it.
Yeah. Well,
Oh, and
thank you.
brush your pets. If you take your pets out on walks, make sure
Oh,
you're grooming and brushing them
that's
too.
a great one. Yeah. Cause when I think about like my cat's been outside like twice and all the stuff that gets in his fur, it's yes,
Mhm.
completely. Yes. They carry everything. Well, thank you, Shika, for coming on the show and telling us about the mile a minute weed.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to come by anytime. And we do have several other species that you might be interested in. So we have a lot of things to talk about and a lot of things that we want your viewers to be aware of. So
Yeah. Let's get in contact later down the road and talk about some other stuff that we can be looking for in our own gardens.
yeah, perfect.
For more on this and other programs, visit a2gov.org/CTN. Visit youtube.com/CTN Ann Arbor to see all that we have to offer. And remember to like, comment, and share. Thanks for watching, and tune in next time to FYI.